It's not the point at all. And what's so interesting, Phil Rucker, is to go back and look at what has happened to the Republicans who told the truth. And we started the last hour with your colleague Ashley Parker with this great piece of reporting over the weekend about how perpetuating the big lie and carrying out these idiotic, performative, fraudulent acts like what is taking place in Arizona isn't just acceptable, it is required in today's Republican Party.
It is, Nicole, and I think that's one of the reasons why this is playing out in Arizona, because let's keep in mind, this is an effort being run by a private company whose top executive spread some of the baseless conspiracies about election fraud that didn't have any evidence. It's being financed by people around the country who were supportive of President Trump's challenge to the election and who were in his ear in the run-up to the January 6th insurrection, feeding him some of these lies. And it was approved by Trump's allies in the Republican-led state Senate in Arizona. And it's nothing more than a performance here. They're going to put together a tally, come up with a number. It's not going to be official. It's not going to be legal. It's not going to change the outcome of the election. But it is going to motivate millions of people around the country to believe the big lie that former President Trump has been telling them, and it'll perpetuate that. And my colleagues at the Post interviewed election officials in other states who say they're very concerned about the danger of what's happening in Arizona because it becomes a playbook for political candidates in the future in other contests in other states. When they lose an election, they can try to pretend that they still won and follow this same pattern, and it will just undermine and erode the public's trust in our democracy and in the legitimacy of the vote for president, but for a whole bunch of other offices as well.
Ryan, what are the different scenarios for how and when this ends?
Well, we were originally told it was going to end by May 14th because, as you read, there's high school graduation supposed to take place at that Coliseum. Right. But they're telling us now, I mean, there's just no way, I mean, that they will finish. When you look at that Coliseum, there are pallets full of unopened ballots on one side and a couple of boxes on the other where they've finished counting and inspecting and shining UV lights on the ballots. So it just was apparently abundantly clear that that wasn't going to happen on that time schedule. So now they're saying that this could take months. Apparently they'll pause, let the kids have their graduation ceremonies in there, and then I guess resume doing whatever they're doing for as long as it takes.
Ryan, are there any efforts to stop the counting if it is, if evidence, I mean, is there anyone to even audit the process if reporters are kicked out to find out if anything untoward is going on inside?
Well, they are allowing observers in there. So there are people besides the media who are allowed to observe. That initially was the only way the media could get in, was by volunteering to work as an observer. The media sued for the access that we have, and we came to a verbal agreement with the Senate Republicans that the media would be allowed in, but not everyone at once, that we would have pool reports, which, as you know, is very common. And so that's how the media has access at all. Yes, there are separate efforts outside of the media's lawsuit to stop this audit. Those have been unsuccessful. They have been allowed to proceed. The judge in that case is concerned with the procedures, though, and what is actually happening to the ballots to make sure that they are secure. So that is ongoing, although, the ballots are in the Coliseum and they're being counted by the folks that the Senate hired. So I don't know how likely it is that a lawsuit is going to successfully stop this. But that's the question we all have, is where does this end? How long does it take them to do what it is they're seeking to do? And then what are they going to say at the end? And how is that going to affect our state? Are the lawmakers here going to use that as justification to make more restrictions on voting in Arizona? Is this going to be commonplace after elections where the Senate grabs all the ballots and rushes them down to the Coliseum so that they can be inspected with UV lights afterwards? It's a great question. Where does this all go?
And Michael Steele, just real quickly, we know about Donald Trump's obsession with UV light. I think he suggested it to cure COVID at that famous briefing where he suggested bleach. But seriously, what is the appropriate role in a land far, far away, in a time most of us have forgotten, for a national party and its leaders, when something like what Ryan has reported on is happening? If you care about the truth, and if you care about the rule of law, right, and if you care about a transfer of power, what would just remind us what a normal RNC chairman would do?
Well, speaking out against this, well, you wouldn't even probably get to this point, number one, because there would have been so much conversation with the leadership, with the Republican leadership in the state, that to avoid this type of embarrassment. This does not help the party's overall narrative to be seen as trying to undo the election that was, appropriately held and correctly counted, et cetera, and to now be on the back end trying to come to a different result, even though you know a different result is not going to really materialize. And so I think that lack of leadership there is not only transparent, it is painfully noticeable. And I guess the question for Ryan and the good folks of Arizona is, what do you do when your legislature goes rogue on you? Would they just decide, you know what, screw you, we want to do this, wah, 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 right? Crying over their spilt milk because they didn't get the election results that they wanted. Man up, woman up, that's the game. Play it the correct way and maybe you will win. But cheating is not your answer. So the citizens of Arizona have a big haul in front of them to ask themselves, are these people really representing us? Are we that desperate in front of the country after an election to do this? And that's going to be a question for a lot of states going forward. So, yeah, Republicans, you've opened a Pandora's box and you stuck your whole self in it. And what's inside that box is going to eat your ass alive. Excuse me, but it's going to eat you up. So
the Republican war on democracy. Look, there's nothing else to say, Michael Steele. I appreciate your candor and your anger. I mean, I'd love to cover something else, but the Republican war on democracy and on free and fair elections in the past is just staggering. Ryan, we are so grateful to have you and your great reporting. Unfortunately for you, we will continue to call on you. Phil Rucker, thank you for being part of this. Michael Steele, thank you for being here. Thank you all for starting us off this hour.